Coming in at number 10 was the Baylor Bears. And what we liked about Baylor this year, especially in the NCAA tournament, was their back row attack. And we're going to watch some of that right here, the Baylor Bears back row attack. And Ryan, feel free to stop us or pause us at any time. But I love the in-system back row attack. This, for example, is not in-system, but 12, 15 feet off the net. And instead of having to set the outside hitter, which so many of us coaches have setters that have to do, you have the back row attack as an option.
Yeah, I think for us, we're looking for best swing possible. Preferably, we're not setting too much out of system stuff to the back row because we feel it's easy for teams to line up. But we use the term we want to be dragons and set the dragons and not the butterflies. And so sometimes when you're coming down from some tip coverage, from blocking a quick middle, if our left sides are using it, we'll do that. This year I think it's probably going to be a 70 coming in from Avery. So a lot of teams focused on Yossi. I think USA maybe calls them 40s there. It keeps the tempo quick. And really it's coming from a spot that I think a lot of teams aren't running it. So, I feel our job as coaches is to do in our gym what other teams aren't seeing, so they can't prepare for it. So I think those 70s is probably one thing for us over the years that I feel teams sometimes struggle to connect on a little bit. I would say early on we've had a lot of good wins. Teams seem to struggle out of the back row blocking. So we're a little bit mindful of our opponents, what their block and their touch percentages are. I think there's some teams where we really stay away from it, and because they do a good job sealing the net. Wisconsin, we lost, unfortunately, 5, didn't get to see them again. We had a couple good wins over them in the years before, and again, those were earlier on in the season. I think they were still have such good, I call them ninjas, little DSs all back there defending the balls, and so when we could use our back row to deflect off hands, we were having a lot of success there. You probably saw a lot of back row from us also this year. We really did not have a great slide attacker. So we'd use our lefty to maybe hit some fast fires or reds, as we call them, and then use the Bics or run our middles. And if you see in the men's game, the opposite of the men's game, take a lot of those swings over there. So back row for us really is to, be a threat antenna to antenna. Had 2 great outside hitters that could both hit well front row, back row, and spread them out. We use a lot of zones on the net, so we do feel, we're not just sideline, but some of those gaps and seams can slow down or disrupt the blockers, or at least the help blockers on middles. Or, maybe keep right fronts in sometimes, which, Minnesota really didn't triple with their right front. So you saw Yossi bang a lot of balls and opens up hitting at the setter, opens up hitting at the opposite.
Yeah, I really like this play. This is the last example in your match against Minnesota. But I love that your back row attacker knows immediately in transition, hey, I need to be an attacker here. Yeah. And you can see she's well trained, and it's definitely part of your in-system offense here that she's not caught off guard, right, by a back row attack, that it's something that you have set up as a play you want to run.
Can I ask a question, Dave?
Yes, you may.
Ryan, this is for you.
Sorry, Heather, you're joining our conference. No free questions. No.
Let's stop.
I know where we're going. No.
This is about last year, so don't worry.
Okay.
What were you guys hitting out of the back row? That's one question. And the second question is, how did you distribute the reps in practice between Yossi or whoever getting front row attacks and back row? Was there a number you were looking for? How many reps were you doing a day to maintain both the front row and the back row?
I'll go backwards for the reps. A lot of our drills maybe got focused on as we were trying to train our middle. It was a middle or back row rep where maybe another part of practice. Hey, we're going to do pins and we're going to work on your out of system shots and then just shut it down. And then when we're really trying to get after super live with defense, the emphasis like, hey, we want to really dig for middles. All of our digs should be a dig for a middle threat. So within that, we would go, it's got to be middle or back row. For our setters, some of the rule is we really want to use the back row more in system. So if the middle's not a threat, back row isn't always the first choice. We really like back row when middles are also a threat, to be a little bit disruptive. And then, for us to be a little bit more specific, we are looking at Yasi in particular. She'd go anywhere from like 320 to 250. She was a little unique where we'd go 300 one day on the right side, and it seems like she was hitting every ball under the block on the Bics, and then okay, we're going to just keep it there or throw the ball outside, and then the next week maybe we overcorrected, and it seemed like she felt less comfortable on the right side, and would be going off on the Bics as well. So a little bit of her rhythm for Yasi, and then a little bit, a lot is based off what opponents are doing. Where's the weaker blocker hole, or who's looking to leave, and let's start there. And if we have success, keep it going. If not, make them respect something else front row, and then we can go back to it later.
Thanks.
We got a couple questions. Luke, I'll let you take this one because you've been heavily involved with international volleyball. But the question is, why is this tendency happening now at the collegiate level when it has been such an international trend for many years?
I don't think I have an answer to that. I know maybe coaches, we do pay more attention to where they play the best volleyball in the world, and that's internationally. I hope so. That's the case. We study. I think more video materials available. If you have Volumetrics account, now you can watch all international games there. There was zero access to that in the past. I think that helps. USA volleyball is winning as well, so people pay attention. And not that they didn't win in the past, but both teams, they've been doing pretty well recently. But I think access to the video, and I would say maybe that sounds ridiculous, but you can find a lot of crazy things on social media, Instagram and Twitter and all this stuff, and things pop up in your account, and kids maybe pay more attention. They have more interest running routes like that. They talk more about routes like that. And I just think also our kids are getting, they're getting more and more physical. We have better athletes coming into the game of the volleyball on the women's and on the men's side. Hey, less girls and boys go play basketball. They decide to go play volleyball, and which has been a trend, which is great. We just get more physical kids that you can run big and pipe and DNC route, as Ryan was just describing. And if you have athletes like that, there's no reason not to run routes like that, because that's going to win for you. You suddenly become not one or two dimensional team, but you become a team that is running 3 routes and set a dump, maybe 4 threats at the same time, which is always nice. But you need to have those bodies in your gym. So I think just access to video and to all these leagues and world championships and Olympics that are a little bit more present on TV, that helps definitely.
Thanks. I'm going to ask this question on behalf of high school volleyball coaches everywhere, because we don't really get to pick our players. If you live within 2 miles of the school, you're on our team. If you're not, you're on another team. But for all of us high school coaches or club coaches that want to run the back row attack, because we see Baylor doing it and USA doing it and these really good teams doing it, do you think that we need to wait until an athlete walks through that door that can do it? Or can we take the athletes that we have and train it and get good at it? Any of you want to take that?
I'll take it. I think you just do it. And I think you do it over and over again. You can do it via reps. You can do it, playing deep court and stuff like that. And I think there's a million ways to be successful at it too. Like Baylor has the luxury of having some pretty physical athletes all the way around the horn to hit it. But you can be successful just if setting back row attacks and cutting the ball, tipping the ball, hitting it to the setter. So I think there's a lot of stress you can put on people without necessarily having, because not everyone has a Yassiana Presley or an Anderson or a Skinner or, down the list here. But I think it's something that you can build in your system to where when you, I don't know, let's just say you do have that player walk in eventually, I think everybody else on the team understands that this is a tool we can use, if that makes sense. And it's like a mindset thing versus, hey, we're only going to run this system based on if we get that player or not. I think there's a lot of good things from being able to run stuff like that. And, the areas, the locations on the court, you can figure out as you go. But I just think there's even when we have kids come to Nebraska, it's not in their nature to do what you said earlier, Dave, there was a play, that last clip you showed, where once that ball's coming over the net, Yassi's already transitioning to be an attacker. I remember even for us, we still have to remind some of our freshmen to like, hey, like if you're not playing the ball, you need to be an attacker out of the back row. And for me, that's a systemic, I'm not going to say problem, but I wish that's more of a mindset shift that we could have in this country of, hey, if I'm a pin attacker in the back row and I'm not playing a first contact, I should be looking to be available to hit just like I would in the front row, if that makes sense.
That's coming from a coach who's got his DS hitting out of the back row, dude. Love it.
I know.
Love it. You're just setting yourself up perfectly, Jay.
Boom, dude.
I was just gonna say here. There we go. That's my moment. Yes, Heather. Yeah. We all want 6 rotation players. Is that right? But what are we doing about it? Yeah, we pull DS in. No, let Kiddo struggle back row and then force him to hit back row. But I understand we're all trying to win, and we got to keep a lot of parents happy. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, you got to decide what you want. So you got to do it to be great at.
Yeah, so Jalen, you're going to like this comment from Randy. I coach 14. We practice back row regularly. But here, Aaron asks, how soon do back row attacks become a regular part of hitting in practice? At what age would you say that's something you should start working on? Luka?
Bošković, best opposite in the world, lefty from Serbia. She started playing back row 5-1 system all around when she was 12. Before Annie Drews hit her first ball internationally back row, she was 10 years older than Bošković. Just to give you an idea. So she was 10 years ahead of Annie Drews, but Annie Drews with hard work and everything else put a nice piece of work together. So you can start earlier. So that requires also you're going to be developing some more arm power because it's greater distance. So you got to have a little bit more pop in your arm. So I think I'm not going to say start too early, but yeah, let's play volleyball back row every now and then. It's okay. And if that's age 12, 13, 14, why not? Try it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great to start it early in practice just because it helps with the range, helps with the power, especially for the younger kids when you're trying to get them to drive the ball deep anyways. It just adds to that. So I feel the back row games, maybe just part of warm-up, also help us with the range. And going back to the questions earlier, it's just another way to put pressure on teams. And you may have the undersized kid that has a live arm, and if they can bring the heat out of the back row, it's hard to get blockers that can cover all parts of the net that ball can cross. Versus if they're getting stuck with a small kid with tight sets on the outside the whole time. I let them get up there and swing away, and suddenly it's helping them when they get to the front row.
Cool, thanks. Phyllis asked, what step is she on? And so I pulled this up and paused it here. You're running, looks like second, maybe even into third step, back row attacks in system, correct?
Yeah, you should see all 3 hitters on second step entering third. So, just starting to pass the step leg that you're on.
Yep. So here she's second going into third.
So that we feel helps. Just Yassi became the middle, to freeze the middle, and I think if we went outside on a fast go, middle's going to be a little bit slower than just sometimes people just see the slides go and can just take off outside.
Okay, Ryan, I'm going to show this to you and ask what has changed over the past couple years. So this is showing your back row attack from NCAA tournament matches from 2017 till this past tournament. The red bars are what you did this year. First ball, transition, all attacks, and looks like, especially in transition, those back row attack numbers kind of skyrocketed.
I think the big difference for 20 and 21 was simply, in 20 we had Shelly Stafford in the middle, and it was if you can set her. And this past year, our middles were not as dynamic as far as being open and available. They had some other good things with blocking, but being unable to score. And then also in 21, we had both Skinner and Yossi. So that's basically, it's doubling it. So we had the option for all 6 rotations. We also put Yossi at opposite this year, which, for all of Hannah's front row, Yossi had her back row. The previous years we were DSing. So like a row 4, if I remember, we only had the 2 hitters, a middle and Yossi outside with our 3 DSs back row. So, this year we have 2 more rows plus 1 more athlete able to hit out of the back row for us.
I'm going to pull up this drill that we have on GMS Plus, and we can talk about ways that we can practice back row attack. So here's a drill we can run, a tug of war drill, a wash drill, where free ball comes in and first ball has to go to back row. After that, you play the rally out however you want. But how would you recommend coaches kind of start back row attack practice if we want to start implementing that? What's kind of step 1? And then how do we know when we're ready to run it in matches?
I think 1, I want to make sure they have a really good step close. And so very early on in our training, we're slow to fast, small, bigger, biggest, but really want to make sure for the back row, they can step close to the right, step close to the left, shorten their step close if the sets are, off. And then maybe you do have to broad jump a little bit sometimes on these because you're limited by the 10-foot line. So we'll work on those last 2 steps. But it's correction exchange is one of our first primary drills where we're ripping back row at each other, really focused on the touches as well, getting dug to the middle and then making sure we have a good step close, hitting the ball back. We feel all our hitters should be able to go to both sidelines and at the very least, have a healthy 80% ball that can put pressure on the setter and make them dig the first one.
Okay, real quick before we move on to BYU, Jim asked, how do you pick the name Dragons for your back row attack?
Well, it's we think of a moth. If I were to have all our other coaches on the screen, just tell me, hey, what sound does a moth make? It's not very loud. Jalen's trying to make the sound of a moth, but not much coming out there. Moths are kind of how we describe the athletes, and I've coached high school too. These are the kids on the gym that maybe kind of block and flutter around. They spin in the same spot and wave their arms around and call for the ball, and then maybe just tip it back over. We just use the imagery where that's not very destructive. We went flying, swooping, breathing down, fire, take out the whole town. The idea of getting to your mark and having approach, being a fire-breathing dragon rather than just a fluttering butterfly or a moth on the net. So they know when I call them a moth, what I'm talking about. Transition, get to the mark. When I'm saying dragon, we're saying they have a big swooping approach, come in and rain fire on it. And it maybe helps our setters know too. Like sometimes not everybody can have those giant approaches depending on the situation.
Cool.
Set dragons and not butterflies or moths.
All right. Final thought about back row attack. Guess what my 6'1" middle is doing today and Friday? I'm going to guess practicing some back row attack. All right, everyone. Thanks for the comments. Keep them coming in. Ryan, take this one if you would. As a coach, can you discuss what percentage of your offense is personal preference versus customization to talent?
I'm not sure I could give you the exact percentage of that. We definitely, like we said, we want to put our 6 best out there and play to their strengths. But, we're also a sport where you're trying to score points. And the best way to score points is to kill the balls and be terminal on it. So, we got to look at where our heavy arms are and where are they most comfortable in order. Is that the clapper in there?
I'm sorry.
That was awesome.
I thought that went out.
That was awesome.
Highlight of the show right there.
Magic.
I think Heather's giving us a sign here. We've been 70 minutes, 80
Magic.
minutes.
But, no, so you got to make sure you're knowing how to score points, and the best way is to be able to terminate the ball. To be able to hit the ball in a way that the defense can't stop. Obviously, it depends on the level. If you can keep the ball off the floor, and your opponents are going to make 10 to 15 errors, and then maybe there's some adjustment right there. So we're, I would sum it up for me. Personal preference is best swing possible. How can I get the right combination of athletes where we're going to get the best swing possible every single time? Will my pass allow the ball to a setter, and can a setter, what are their limits to a hitter, and do that? And, flip it over on defense as well. Coaches talked about it, and then defense is serving is a big part of it, serving, blocking, and can I dig in a way that's going to give me best swing possible?